world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see, and the climate's changing, but hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got, boys. Together we strike it. The world where we live, permite a todos vivir. Tomarnos la oportunidad para guardar la humanidad. Leave no one behind because we are
This message is brought to you by the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center under the EU GCCA Plus project, funded by the European Union.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of PowerTalk. My name is Patrice Harris, and I am the Corporate Communications Manager at SKELEC. This morning's special edition of PowerTalk will feature the celebration of World Engineers Day for 2023. World Engineers Day will be celebrated on March 4th, which is Saturday, and SKELEC has embarked upon several activities, which includes this radio program as well as a school tour in celebration of World Engineers Day. This special edition will be for 1 hour as opposed to our usual 30-minute slot. This morning we are joined by 4 engineers who are going to speak to us on the topic. We're going to start this morning by allowing each of the individuals who are here with us this morning to provide a brief introduction of who they are, what they do, and which organization they are affiliated with. So it's Women's Month, so I say ladies first.
Good morning, I'm Chantal Henry. I'm the Assistant Water Engineer at Water Services Department.
Good morning, Chantal. Happy to have you. First time here on Power Talk, right?
No, second time.
You've been on Power Talk already?
Mm-hmm.
No, you sure?
Well, specifically for SKELEC, no, but
okay.
ANSYS, yes.
Okay. The other gentlemen who are here with us?
Yes, so I'm Kenward Roberts, the Assistant Engineering Manager for SKELEC, and welcome to this program, and I'm thankful to be here.
And this is your second time here with us?
Yes, it is my second time here.
Hopefully not your last. And Mr. Williams?
Good morning, listeners and viewers. My name is Clement Jomo Williams. I'm the General Manager of SKELEC.
And we do have another, Mr. Williams is a regular on Power Talk. I'll have him host it one day. We do have another panelist who has joined us virtually from Nevis, so I will allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning. What work with the utility? I used to work at Network for 9 years. Currently, I'm at the Angela Secondary School. We are happy this week. So this
Alright, Clea, thank you for joining us. We do have some technical difficulties, so I will allow the team to sort that out so that I am able to hear you, and I'm hoping that the viewers and listeners are also able to hear you as well. Alright, so this morning, as mentioned before, 4 engineers who are going to be speaking to us on the topic, which is also the theme for World Engineers Day 2023, Engineering Innovation for a More Resilient World. Each presenter has been asked to prepare a short speech or introduction rather as to what their interpretation of that theme is. So I will allow each of our presenters to explain to us what do they understand by engineering innovation for a more resilient world. So Kenward, let's start with you.
Okay, so hi, good morning to the radio public. As Ms. Harris would have mentioned, the theme is engineering innovation for a more resilient world. So while for me engineering can be viewed as concerning the design, building and use of machine structures, for me I view engineering as more generally the application of science and math to solve problems. And let me stress, to solve problems. And when you think about it, along with agriculture, engineering is one of the oldest professions. For as long as mankind has existed, we have endeavored to manipulate the built environment and have had to apply innovative thinking throughout to be able to have progress to where we are. So the question, therefore, is what in particular about engineering in this current day that has required us to go beyond just simply solving a problem? And that is where I think the topic and the theme then introduces innovation as well as for a more resilient world. And with those two, addition to what engineering would have encompassed, which I would have indicated is the solving of problems, I think I would posit three reasons for the linking of these three things. One, there being a greater need for structures and systems built to last much longer. There is much greater knowledge today and awareness of the various challenging situations faced by the environment. So while of course prior societies would have experienced much of what we experience today, whether earthquakes, hurricanes and the like, their knowledge of it would not have been what it is today. So our current knowledge of the environment has now given us greater awareness of the challenges faced, and as such has pushed engineering to not just be a matter of solving a problem, but now looking at how not only do you solve the problem, but have something that is sustainable and can withstand the test of time. I would also posit that another reason why I see the link in between engineering and now the specific connection to innovation and resilience is also the availability of tools and knowledge, technology and processes today that allow us to impart greater resiliency. Because it's one thing to be aware, but the next thing to have the tools and the technology and equipment to be able to make a difference in terms of bending the arc of just not just having a system, but having a system that can withstand various shocks. And lastly, I would also put forward that sustainability is another reason why I think there has been a greater need and a greater awareness for there to be innovative engineering towards a resilient world. I'm not sure if that's my time, but if you would like to move on, you can, and then we'll go from there.
Look, you know, you just broke my heart slightly there, because I always thought I was an engineer at heart, but I'm not very good at science or math, so maybe I'm just a problem solver and not an engineer. All right, so what about some of the other panelists? Is there anyone who agrees or wants to place something else on the table in terms of pointers or their interpretation as it relates to engineering innovation for a more resilient world? Kenward spoke about the tools and the technology needed for sustainability and the knowledge being increased, so we should be in a better position now to be able to solve some of these problems. I'll allow some of the other panelists to chime in.
Okay, so I agree with Kenward. It is a method for solving technology and business problems for organizations that want to innovate, adapt, or enter new markets using expertise in emerging technologies. With respect to water, for example, it's enough for our field workers to be knowledgeable in location of water infrastructure. However, right now we're getting into GIS, where is a geographical information system that would help us to better track and keep a stored data of where all our infrastructure is currently. So basically, not only will our workers be aware, but we will also be aware, because it will be backed up.
All right, good. So we have an understanding, and this is actually a perfect example of the use of engineering innovation through resilience, because The innovation is GIS, which is the technology that you spoke about, and the resilience is because we have had some challenges with water, especially within our belt, within our region, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is a great example of how we have used innovation to engineer a more resilient world. Were we able to get the challenges with Miss Bartlett sorted? All right, so Miss Bartlett, I'll give you the opportunity now to provide your contribution to the theme.
Okay, so we often speak of the words innovation, engineering, resilience, but do we really as engineers just not only utter the words? I think that's part of what we need to think about when we think about this theme. In my mind's eye, engineering innovation for a more resilient world seeks to highlight encouraging engineering fraternity in their efforts to apply these skills and knowledge, these problem solving skills, to find creative solutions to deal with these issues that we are currently facing on our world scale, to help us to overcome, continuously be able to bounce back from whatever is thrown at us. Currently, we have a lot of environmental issues going on, with climate change, global warming, natural resources depletion. We've heard these words a lot lately, and these issues have forced us to shift and adapt to find these solutions, and that's where the engineers and the innovation of the engineers has to come into play. Because we have to continuously do this, just that we're currently, but we have to also look at the future and where our children will be, and we want them to be environmentally secure as well. Where it ties into my world, the electrical world, I would say the non-renewable resources, the use of these resources is kind of contributing to some of these issues. And so we now as engineers have to be innovative and find these new ways and means to harness those renewable resources, for one, to replace these non-renewable resources and do this effectively. So this is our challenge right now, to find these eco-friendly energy solutions that can work for us and help us to be resilient. So I also do believe, though, that we need to not just focus on the seasoned engineers or the current engineers, but also use this opportunity to seek to inspire others to get into this field, join into the join into this field, join into the get into the challenges, get your brain going, and I try to encourage my people as well. Think along those lines. They can, it's just like it can be problems, they can will have that succession planning, the continuous growth of our world, the resilience once we get everybody on board. So that's where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Queer, thank you for your contribution. I'm getting a feedback now in studio, but thank you for your contribution, Cleo. We definitely understand the importance of ensuring that there is succession planning, especially within the engineering industry. I know sometimes it's very difficult, especially when it comes to recruiting engineers, to be able to find persons who, and I'm sure Mr. Williams will gladly speak about this, who are a suitable fit and have the particular skill sets that are necessary. I know that that is one of the main reasons why we decided to start to celebrate World Engineers Day and to promote engineering, so that there is a pool or a pipeline of talent that can be able to filter into not only SKELEC or NEVLEC or even water department or public works or other areas where engineers are needed. So Mr. Williams, you get the opportunity to wrap up this part of the conversation about the theme.
All right, thank you, Ms. Harris. The theme is a very interesting one indeed. When we think about our world, just say 10 years ago, we could see differences in the advancement of technology. Where, at a young age, you see children with iPads and they're able to switch through apps and basically you could call them, young prodigies in a sense. So this is the direction that we see the engineering field, the engineering fraternity going, where younger and younger persons are gaining the skills necessary to make the changes that the world needs. So incorporating resilience into that theme is pretty much goes undoubtedly. With respect to climate change and the effects that we are seeing even now as a utility, bushfires, stronger hurricanes, building resiliency into our industry as the electric company goes without saying. We have, as a company, as SKELEC, we have invested significant sums of money in installing underground cable in key areas, and I know the team is working to increase the percentage of the infrastructure being underground. We are looking at more resilient technologies. We just recently had a supplier come down and introduce some new technologies. We've been making new connections all over the industry, both utility and utility to supplier. So these are the key linkages that are going to move our utility specifically and in general engineering forward. So you spoke earlier, and I think Cleo mentioned it about succession planning. One of the things that we find challenging is that the pool of engineers within the federation is very shallow. Now we have to find ways to make this increase. So it's not to say in general you just say I need to increase the pool by X percent by this time. You have to put system in place to support that. So it could be through offering scholarships to persons attending university to pursue STEM-based education. It could be putting on more science fairs for the younger children, encouraging the younger children to have a greater appreciation for the STEM field. It could be something as simple as going to a preschool and doing a science experiment with them, just to open their minds and understand that there's more to the world than being a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, a nurse. What about being a water engineer? What about being a linesman? What about being some technical position? So it has to start from that young age. We have to incorporate those things early, so that as persons go older and they start to set their mind in the direction they want to go, that they will directly feed into these areas that we need the assistance.
Now, Mr. Williams, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know that you just made your initial presentation and you spoke quite extensively about the steps that SKELEC has been taking as it relates to building resilience. I want to know, from a company perspective, especially when COVID-19 was around, what were some of the particular problems that we faced that we had to use an engineering mindset to be able to create a solution for? And COVID presented a long list of challenges and opportunities as well.
Correct.
So from a SKELEC perspective, what were some of these challenges, and how were we able to use an engineering mindset, not just only related to the hardcore technical engineering, but it's even the use of innovation as well?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Now, colloquially, we like to say force make water go uphill, and that is exactly what happened. We were forced to change. Now, typically, persons don't like change. They don't like to adapt to change. But because the situation forced us to change, we automatically just changed. Never before could we think that an entire department could be working remotely. We had to do it because we had to social distancing. We had to increase our bandwidth on the internet because everybody was remote, which would have meant more security. The IT team definitely had a big part to play in this. Even the technology centers, the technology hubs, the persons who make Zoom and Teams and all those other platforms, they had to expand, they had to open up, they had to put away the pay for licensing and allow persons access, because without access to these things, people we would have never gotten exposed to it. So COVID-19 really was a big teacher. It really was a big thrust towards incorporating innovation into our daily work life. And now that we've been through it for the past 2-3 years, it has become a norm for us. You know, I can sit in my office and say, okay guys, let's jump on a team meeting, and I have a meeting with somebody in England, in France. Never before we were able to do the things virtually, where you're seeing and interacting and sharing your screen and the person making changes real time. So these things from time to time will happen. We are also glad that the whole COVID situation is now somewhat behind us for the most part, but we are glad to have taken along the benefits of it through the technological advancement that we incorporated.
All right, I know that some have described that we're in a post-COVID era. I think it has officially been declared and deemed that COVID is over, the nightmare is gone. I know that Mr. Williams has spoken from a SKELEC perspective and from more or less an administrative perspective. So with Kenward and Chantal being way more technical and way more in the field, Kenward is looking at me shaking his head. How was your engineering mind? Because I know both of you have those minds and they don't turn off. How was your engineering mind really processing and coming up with solutions to problems and incorporating innovation now in this post-COVID or in the COVID era? Yes.
Okay, that's that with me. The thing is, most of what Mr. Williams said is what I would have like what I was going to say. So what I was thinking of is at least we were forced to at least do more in terms of our payment processing. So like I know we would have launched a few additional avenues by which persons would be able to have gain access to SKELEC as well as make payments. And what also was a note for me is it's something we have done in the past, but it became more formal, which I would term remote service, where instead of having to rely on persons coming on site, we would have engaged them remotely through video conferencing and the appropriate tools to be able to provide the necessary support. So it's similar to what the DJ mentioned, but at least he mentioned it from an administrative standpoint, but that also carried over from a technical standpoint when it came to the work to be done on the units.
All right, thank you so much, Kenward. I really didn't even pay attention so much to the remote servicing, and that really wasn't something that jumped to mind instantly, but that really, I mean, you had no choice. The world was closed off. You had no choice, and we had to keep the nation powered, and we did so beautifully during COVID. So kudos to SKELEC. All right, so Chantal, you mentioned to me that you studied geomatics engineering,
Yes.
right? And the only part I'm really familiar with is the GIS component. So I want you to talk to me because GIS is the technological and it is innovative. So I want you to specifically tell me about how crucial is innovation and technology in the whole engineering design process and execution and in building resilience.
Okay, it is definitely crucial. Currently, we are looking at, for example, with COVID, it affected the water department in a major way because we weren't able to operate optimally in terms of checking reservoirs, going out to read meters, people coming in to make payments. So, we had to do something else that basically could combat that. So the solution will be smart meters, where meters could be read basically from a computer. So we're looking into getting more. We have some smart meters, but most of the country is mechanical. So you have to go in the field and read them. So that was an issue. Checking reservoirs, you have to go and you have to check the levels and everything. We're looking into ways to do that from a computer also. It's good to have a backup where persons can go into the field, but also you still could check it remotely. And with respect to GIS, that allows us to collect data, store data, manage data, analyze data, manipulate the data, and help us to make better decisions and also future plans for infrastructure. So basically, in my degree for my final year project, I used GIS to basically map an additional route from Keys to Boreal. So you had to put in different information, and the computer basically made a model that will show you the best cost route, basically. So it's a really good program. So once you get into it and you see it has many benefits. But I think water department is moving in the direction of innovation. It ain't gonna happen overnight, but slowly but surely.
According to Mr. Williams, force makes water go milk. And these are some very exciting projects, and I'm sure that Mr. Williams and Mr. Roberts will kind of nodded like, oh, we forgot to talk about the AMI and the smart meter team and the work that how that helps a lot, especially when they in the COVID and now in the post-COVID era, to build that out so much better, because the aim is to find solutions to problems that make our day-to-day much easier. And if those solutions include innovation and technology, well, let's go right ahead. All right, I'm going to allow Claire the opportunity to chime in on this conversation. You can speak to innovation, and I know Claire is also a teacher, so Claire isn't very hardcore in the field right now. At least that's my assumption. Yes. But she's now with the students and trying to help us to bring up that new era of engineers. So Claire, let's have a conversation about innovation, technology, and you also mentioned to me that it's TVET week as well.
Well, yes, I was more hardcore, but now I'm chilling. But yes, even if I never let days, yes, it was a challenge. We, as Mr. Williams said, force makes water go uphill, so you had to change with the times accordingly. COVID even more. But in terms of the innovation, even from our standpoint, we had to innovate when COVID came on us, and school had to and we had to learn, and some of us were forced to embrace the technology that is available and even tap into more that is out there. In terms of the TVET subjects in particular, you'd realize, or I hope we know, that these subjects are the technical vocational subjects, meaning that they are more hands-on, more practical. And it's the most difficult thing to do, hands-on and practical, when you're miles away. We can't contact each other than a remote contact. So we had to find a lot of ways. The innovation did come into play. So the inner engineer came out in a lot of the teachers to find ways and means to still make the sessions meaningful, make sure we get the point across, make sure they're getting the information they need. Had they been in person, the same information. So it was looking for a lot of simulations so that they can get to practice these skills and so on. and still get to the point that they need to be at the end of the year, whether we're remote or in person. So innovation, yes, we did have to innovate. So we became some engineers here as well. Those who aren't trained did have to dig into that innovative side.
Promoting innovation and about promoting the use of technology, and sometimes it really doesn't take into account a lot of what the present reality is as it relates to fully utilizing innovation. And I know that we have some additional steps that need to be taken in order to get us to where we need to be to have all of these smart cities and everything smart cars, smart meters, everything. So what are some of the steps that we need to undertake at this point in time to get us to be in that super smart place? And when we say smart, we're speaking about technologically. What are some of these steps and how can we incorporate engineering in that? I see Mr. Williams pointing on you, Mr. Roberts. So.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll try and be brief on because the number of things.
You're excited about this.
The number of things come to mind. So I would first attack it from two angles. So there is the educational side of things, which we've sort of touched on, and then what is required in practice. So from the educational side of things, we certainly need more persons doing engineering. And it's also necessary to mention that engineering is a very rich field. And so while persons may currently be speaking of, I guess, water, electrical, of course there's civil, chemical, systems, software, like it goes on and on. Even now, there is at times considered financial engineering, but I won't
and
touch
social engineering.
But so engineering itself is a very rich field, and so the federation definitely requires more persons taking up careers in not just a particular field, but in the various fields available. Now, why I am stressing on there being a multitude of disciplines in the engineering field being pursued is really because a lot of innovation happens at the junction or the periphery of different fields, and thus from an engineering standpoint, having more persons that would have pursued varied fields, that mix of minds would naturally be primed or be potent for the explosion of new ideas and creative solutions. And it's something I've spotted in many different areas, and it's something that even when you read what would have sparked certain things, you begin to realize, yes, it may have, yes, you can account it to an individual or two or three, and you could also possibly account it to timing. But more than that is the mixing of ideas. And so it's necessary when it comes to innovation that there are opportunities or there are avenues to foster greater levels of collaborations between engineers. And I'm speaking beyond the professional domain. So while we may go to conferences in our various areas and meet persons in our specific fields, I think more than that is required. There may be an issue or a problem that someone is facing, and it is only in casual dialogue that there was even an opportunity for some unique solution to have been discussed, to have been devised, and takes into account the each's area. So this brings to mind even now a conversation I had with a returning engineer where he would have lamented the difficulty in knowing where he can meet like-minded software engineers on island with whom he can collaborate towards realizing an idea. So for me, while the need for collaboration is obvious, but I think more than the need is there being created avenues to allow for the meeting of minds, because this is quite critical to encouraging or stimulating innovation in the federation. So yeah, so that is one aspect of it. I also think there is a need to encourage exploration, because while the science field is known for you could say exploratory research, there is still some amount of exploration that is required in engineering, because engineering, while we speak of the maths and science, the thing I wanted to mention when you asked about whether you are like an engineer, was really to point out that engineers are expected to be creative problem solvers, and so the most important tool that an engineer has is their own creativity. So, Patrice, I'm sure between your creativity and your problem solving, you are most welcome on the team of engineers.
Oh, great. I'm a social engineer now. One of the things I find is that engineers like to talk to each other. So I hope that in your quest for collaboration, that collaboration also extends outside of the engineering world, so that there is a bit of grounding within those conversations, because an engineer would literally and physically blow the roof, but we want to ensure that these conversations, especially as we're talking about how do we get more innovation into St. Kitts and Nevis, how do we fully utilize innovation. So yes, these conversations and collaboration and exploration is very important. Let's have a conversation about what are some of the other steps that we need to take outside of having these conversations, outside of exploring. What else do we need to do to be able to fully utilize technology?
That's a very loaded one.
Yes,
Yeah,
I want
very,
us to
very,
have the
very
conversation.
loaded.
I'm passionate about this.
I think SKELEC has taken pretty much the lead on doing that, in the sense, if you look at the mix of engineers that we have in SKELEC, it ranges from industrial, mechanical, design, electrical, renewable energy, power systems, electronic. So we have a very good mix, and it's
mechanical maintenance.
Yes. So we have a very, very good mix of different engineering fields, and it's only through collaborative teamwork, as Ken had mentioned, that's where you find the innovation coming in. When one engineering discipline ends and the other one begins, the innovation takes place right in that mix. And you also have the collaboration between the different utilities. Many times we work with our sister utility, the water department. We share the expertise, our expertise with them, they share theirs with us. We collaborate. Chantal mentioned the need for them to go to AMI smart meters. We at SKELEC have a smart meter network that we can adapt some of their meters to read through our network. So that in its sense could help them share some of the coverage, help both utilities spread the cost of the system across both utilities, so that it's a benefit for us and we share the platform. Through activities such as Energy Month, we do a lot of collaboration there, again with specifically with water department, as SKELEC falls under the head of the Minister of Utilities. So water department, public works, SKELEC, we have a very good relationship. The other utilities such as flow and cable, we maintain relationships with them as well. It's maybe not as collaborative as we would like, but we do maintain that rapport between them. If we have challenges, we can reach out to them, ask them for their assistance, same way, because we're not experts on everything. We're good at what we are good at, and when we need that extra help, we're not afraid to go out and say, look, I need your help. Lend me your expertise in this area. That's all I'll say for now.
All right. And as you're speaking about steps, I want us to even have a conversation about what are some of the hindrances, because a lot of times we are really asking and pushing for, let's have technology, we can use technology to do this. But sometimes, again, present reality really provides hindrances. So Chantal, I heard you chuckle. What are some of the hindrances you think there are that currently exist that kind of allow us to be, not allow us, but is the reason why we're a few steps behind?
Okay, some of the hindrances are basically financial investment, because engineering innovation is, quite a bit of money. Some of those things, like JS, for example, that's a very costly program, and you have to basically pay for a license every year. You don't just get it and that's it. Every year you have to pay for a license, and every license you have to pay for. So it definitely needs financial investment, training, development in the areas of skilled jobs. You need people who going basically want to work in those kind of fields, not just office jobs, but want to work hands-on jobs. And also persons basically to get into the mindset of wanting to, evolve, not just wanting to stay with tradition. I think sometimes people, caught up in what was working 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And instead of, taking on some of the tradition and also adding it with evolution, basically what will work now and for the future, because you have to plan for now and also for future generations to come.
Chantal, I'm happy that you spoke about mindset, because I tend to believe that is one of the greatest challenges we have towards the incorporation of innovation and technology into our day-to-day. People just being extremely hesitant to use technology. I'm still baffled sometimes at how long our bank lines are, but it's just because people want to go in and see, get the receipts in their hand and all of these things. That's a bit jaw-dropping for me as a millennial, but we really have to have that real conversation about mindset, cost as well. And to date, no one has mentioned infrastructure, but we have a lot of infrastructural development to be able to get those sorts of system upgrades to have all of this smartness that we want. So again, these are the conversations that we need to be having. Cleo, what says you, especially from your vantage point, being formally hardcore technical, now in the teaching profession, what are some of the hindrances do you see towards the incorporation of innovation and technology into day-to-day and in engineering?
I think you guys nailed it. The major problem, I think, is really the mindset of the general populace in terms of embracing the technology, utilizing it. We've seen it even here when we did have to transition to more of the technological using the technology for teaching and so on. That was one big hindrance, and it goes across the board to every aspect of our lives here in the Federation. That, I think, is what's keeping us back, the mindset, even of those persons who are in the influential positions. Do they really push this enough? That we need to push towards the moving the country technologically. That's how I see it.
Right, so Cleo, as you are not as hardcore in the field anymore, and you did mention that you paid your dues, I'm giving you the opportunity now to be more or less an outsider, to tell us how you think engineering can play a crucial role in creating more resilience, especially as it relates to renewable energy and energy security. These are two topics, renewable energy and energy security, that became major talking points, especially in the COVID era, especially now in the post-COVID era, with all of these external factors, inflation, war, all of these things. How is it that we can incorporate innovation and technology as we think about energy security and renewable energy?
But I think the innovation will come into place. How would we really get these renewable sources incorporated without the end customer having to pay the price? I think that's where the innovation really is the key there, so that it can be affordable and still eco-friendly, still harnessing the power of the sun and the wind and all the others, the hydro and so on, utilizing as many as we can here and getting rid of as much of the non-renewables as possible, but at the same time, making it affordable for us and making it so that it is a continuous thing. We'll have it there. We will be secure to know that, yes, we can depend on these sources and we can afford to get these sources.
All right, so Mr. Williams and Mr. Roberts, really now the ball is in your court. It has been established before that the setup of renewable energy is extremely capital intensive. A real solid financial investment will need to be made to get renewable energy projects off of the ground. And Claire spoke about where the innovation for her mind comes in is ensuring that the customer doesn't have to end up paying majority of that cost. So how is innovation and technology important as we think about energy security and renewable energy?
Okay, so how do I take this one? So I'm one who tend to be on this side that when it comes to investing in the field of energy, there is I do not think the investment can ever be too high based on the fact that I think it's an accelerator of growth. Okay. And so even if it means some of it is subsidized like initially so that gets going, I think I think an analysis that is done would show the multiplicative value that one would get will pay itself so many times over. So similar to how we may view an investment in tourism because that has multiplicative value, I think energy, sadly, I think is at a higher level because everything so our modern day relies on energy. And so because even now, so when I think about the link that exists between the utility and the two utilities present here, which is water and SKELEC, we would recognize that in short order there would be a need for substantial amount of energy to be demanded for reverse osmosis and desalination. So, but to get to it, so at least my take on it is that I do not think an investment is either too high, but so some amount of subsidy in the beginning I think is necessary. But even then, I think there are ways to find the appropriate mix to ensure that so for example today I don't have to mention the cost of fossil fuel is quite high. So there's no question that the lowest cost the lower cost of production would be currently renewable energy, but I do accept that one of the hindrances is being able to invest in infrastructure, and sometimes it's not just the capital cost, it's actually cost of the capital. Because if someone is willing to give it a capital at 1%, you could easily say let's go. But if you can't get it at those preferential rates, then just moving a few percentage points can make a big difference between what seems sustainable for the utility or customers and what is viewed as being a bit cost prohibitive.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
I think Mr. Roberts did a very good job of summing it up. What I would add, however, is that within the whole theme of what we were talking about today, technology and innovation plays a very big part in that. If you look at the cost of the batteries that are used to store energy now, the cost has dropped significantly and the capacity have increased. So in the initial stage, the research stage that Mr. Roberts was talking about earlier, when you first bring a technology on the scene that can be it probably has been beta tested somewhere before, but it is new, it is fresh, somewhere along the line, bet yourself somebody else is re-engineering it to make it smaller, to make it cheaper, so you could mass produce it. So by the time, say 5, 10 years down the road, when you compare the original product to what it is now, mark difference. Look at the very first computer. Very first computer now could hardly hold any program that we are using today, because over time they were able to develop it in such a way that you could increase the capacity on the hard drive while making them smaller. So that is where innovation, resilience does come into play in all of that. Carol also mentioned capital and the cost of capital. Nothing gets done without capital. Nothing. And nothing named free money. You know, you pay for it in some other way. So whether it's a grant or whether it's a low interest loan, there has some stipulation tied in some way where over time persons will recoup their money through some other form, some other medium. So it is up to us as engineers to look at the wholehearted solution, work with the finance people and do some financial engineering and come up with the best solution where everybody benefits.
All right, that sounds good. The future is always very exciting to think about, you know, even though it really takes effort to get us to where we want to be. And I want to live in a smart city. I want to live somewhere where it's easy for me to be connected. Now, we've been having this conversation about engineering with the hopes to promote engineering as a viable option as a career for anyone who is interested. One of the challenges that we tend to see in the engineering fraternity is that it is a very male-dominated field. Even within SKELEC, we do not have any female engineers, and that creates a challenge for us. And that is why through World Engineers Day and our celebratory events, we aim to promote engineering as a field for that women can be a part of, and that is extremely gender equal. I'm going to allow both Chantal and Cleo to lead the conversation now as we speak about gender equality in engineering and how we can promote that. And even if they want to tell us how they ended up in engineering or even experiences they might have had that might be pleasant or unpleasant from the academic journey up until now actively working as engineers. So Claire, would you like to start the conversation here on gender equality?
Well, I actually ended up in this field because my mother, when we had options in high school where you choose your subjects, my mother said that you have to choose a technical subject. It was either electrical or BFT. My sister chose BFT. I chose electrical. You may know her, Tanya Bartlett. And I think she was there last year on this show. And so we didn't really have a choice. I was the only girl all the way through university, way up through like my second year. I was the only girl in the class. There were many negative reactions. Even when I went to CFBC, persons were saying, "Why did you go there? Why are you doing this field? This is a male thing. Girls shouldn't do this." So there's a lot of negativity even now. And even now at school, when you try to encourage the girls, because these jobs are labeled as a male's job, and then there are female jobs. So that mindset has to change, especially here. Not as much, I must say, when I ventured outside of the Federation, but here that mindset needs to change where it is a male job or it is a female job. That it's just a matter of your abilities, your interests, and we need to also work on the interests that encourage the females earlier on, both male and female, boys and girls, but more so the females, so that yes, we can get a little more balance, because we ladies do see things a little differently. So our input is needed. Our input is needed there. And if SKELEC needs a female engineer, they can call me up.
But thank you for doing that, Mr. Williams. I have the number. She can start next week.
Cleo does have my number also, so she can send me her resume.
All right, Chantal.
Okay, yes, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics should be encouraged for women. Also highlighting attractive job prospects and opportunities, because I think sometimes people think when you're doing like engineering jobs or hands-on jobs, you can't go into certain organizations. And I think when you have an engineering degree, you have a wide variety of job opportunities because you understand it from a technical point of view, and also you can also learn from a business point of view. So that's also, and I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to be an engineer because you have to dress a certain way, and so I think I dress nice too.
I agree.
And I put on heels and I fix my hair. Sometimes I put on sneakers. Other times I put on heels. I would walk with my sneakers, then switch to my heels. So, I mean, being an engineer, I think, people sometimes think, oh, you have to dress a certain way or be a certain way. Or, I think you just have to be confident, know what you want to do, right? I always been a technical person. I did technical drawing. I'm naturally artistic, so I always did technical subjects from high school go straight up. So I never, even if you might have gotten me 1 or 2 comments, it was never much comments because I'm a strong-minded person. So even if you tell me that, it don't matter. Once I know I could do it, I'll do it.
Nice. Mr. Williams, you are the general manager of SKELEC, and it has been placed on the table several times that we don't have female engineers. We don't have a lot of females working in our technical division. Let's have a conversation about that. And yes, Mr. Roberts, you're not off the hook either. You're the assistant engineering manager, which means direct responsibility for our technical fields as well. What is it that we need to do more of? Where is the conversation at right now? What steps are we taking? How can we really make engineering seem a lot more gender equitable and a place where women want to be a part of?
Okay, very interesting question. For years, I have been an advocate for incorporating more females into the technical roles at SKELEC. We just recently onboarded, well, not recently, but over the last few years, we have onboarded some female technicians within the department. We did review a couple resumes, including my good friend right here, to be considered a part of the team, but by the time we made her an offer, she had already gotten a competitive offer, and she's at the water department. So she could have been the first female engineer at SKELEC, but decided to go elsewhere.
Well, she's the first female engineer at water department, so you still have your first.
Correct. Good. Right? So, but from a SKELEC standpoint, we're not averse to it at all. We probably have to look at it from a more strategic standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of providing and exposing the younger generation, especially young girls, into the field of STEM, through sponsorship, through scholarships, whatever it takes, so that you can develop that pool to pick from eventually. Maybe even do something like an internship at the company, specifically targeted towards females in the STEM industry. So these are the things that management and by extension the SKELEC board of directors can incorporate in part of their strategic plan, in part of our strategic plan, so that 5-10 years down the road we are reaping the benefits of it. Because as Cleo mentioned, being the lone female up to a certain point of her university education, and Chantal saying the same thing, where you're 1 or 2 amongst many men. So we have to change that stigma. We definitely do have to change that stigma, and let the world know that a woman can do anything a man could do.
And better.
I don't know about the better part.
Very better. Chantal, better. Cleo, better.
I don't know. So, Robert?
You would concur with what you would have said, because I would have started off my presentation in speaking about having the appropriate mix of minds, and so gender equality, like in a nutshell, it's certainly a good thing.
All right, so wonderful. And sorry,
I think it boils down to socialization also. You know,
most certainly.
That making persons feel like, oh, women should be teachers or nurses or lawyers. You know, encourage them to be, going to the technical fields also.
Yeah, so one of my notes on socialization was with respect to risk, because I think the way sometimes we are socialized to view risk has a big part to play, but I don't think we have much time. but I'm sure we could see at times certain areas or fields tend to, even when you look beyond engineering. I think if we just focus on why is there that discrepancy in engineering, we may lose sight of the actual, nugget or linchpin to it. And when I've taken a look at other fields, you would recognize that at times, if certain fields are presented as very risky, I think persons' aversions. I think sometimes how we present fields, as well as the associated risk, I think has a big part to play in it. And for us to appropriately do a better job in packaging things at times.
all right, thank you so much. I just wanted to chime in as we wrap up. Last year we did a school tour and we visited several high schools, not all high schools, and we spoke to students to encourage them to pursue engineering. There was one school in particular where we went, and the school introduced us to their electrical cohort, and it was all boys. And I had to say to the principal, you have to go and find some girls, get some girls to sit down here in this session to be able to be exposed to engineering. Eventually, some did saunter in, but it was very, 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 very real life example as to what is happening, that the girls, the ladies, are shying away from the technical field, and they are shying away from the STEM field and from engineering. And so I really want parents to use this opportunity, teachers, persons who serve as community mentors, to encourage young persons to get involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That is a campaign that SKELEC has as well, because we see the need to be able to develop that pool of potential employees so that SKELEC can continue to be the nation's leading utility provider. We're out of time this morning for our special edition of PowerTalk. I am delighted that I was able to have 4 engineers here with me to have this conversation about engineering innovation for a more resilient world in celebration of World Engineers Day, which will take place on Saturday, March 4th. So thank you, Chantal, Conrad, Clement, Jomo, and Cleo for joining us this morning, and we hope that you will be back at a later date. So bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in.